Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Practical Organic Living. In this episode, I'm going to show you an easy, practical way to water your garden that's going to save you a lot of time. I hand water my raised beds and fruit trees at my current place for about 10 years, but found out that it took too much of my time. It burns me out towards the end of the summer, and I didn't do a very good job since the soil was not evenly moist throughout the day. So I got around to installing an automated watering system. So drip irrigation is practical because it automates your watering so that when you're in the garden, you're just not watering. You can also relax and enjoy your garden. You have more time to prune your plants for health, pull weeds if you're not mulching, and keep up with the harvesting. Although it may seem like an obvious solution, I really feel that the barrier for people to install drip irrigation themselves is due to the perception of complicated parts and setup. I'll try to remove that barrier by showing you how easy it is to actually install and how uncomplicated the parts and pieces actually are. Here's my general setup. There's really just 3 or 4 main parts. Okay, so if you look down here, this is the irrigation timer. It's attached to the hose faucet. I recommend you have a garden hose splitter so that you can also attach a garden hose to your faucet. That way you can hand water your garden. So this side is the hand watering portion and this side is for the irrigation timer. And these irrigation hoses run along the side of the yard and they go to the raised bed. That's how the raised beds get the water. And the last portion is the emitters from the hoses that spray the water for even moisture distribution. This setup differs from the usual setup of laying out multiple drip lines in a raised bed and punching holes in those tubings, because what we're doing here is actually attaching sprayers to just one line of tubing so that you don't have to keep laying out multiple rows and multiple columns of punched holes and tubings. And also, the usual setup requires actually attaching tubing within tubing in those punch holes. And that's what really makes this whole process very complicated. So now that you have a general idea of my general setup, let me show you the parts that I use for my setup. So I showed you the irrigation timer, and this pressure regulator is optional for this particular setup since you actually want as much water pressure as you can get. So this is a faucet to tubing adapter. I think faucet is 3/4 inch and the irrigation tubing is 1/2 inch. So this is basically an adapter connecting the 2 different sizes. Tubing comes in 2 standard sizes, 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch. This 1/2 tubing here is basically like a highway. This barbed tee is a highway ramp off. And then this 1/4 inch tubing are basically like the main roads. Now, emitters are what we are using to distribute the water. Again, we're not punching holes into the tubings. So this is the end plug. It basically plugs to the end of the tubing to stop the water from going any further. So this is an elbow connector. It's actually optional, but you may find it for design purposes and also for looks on a raised bed. So this is a T connector. It's also optional, but you may find it useful for design purposes. This will also make more sense later because I would use just one. To show you how this all works, I'm now going to be setting up a new zone in my front yard. I have a 3 outlet irrigation timer, so the front yard would be the 3rd zone. I've extended a repurposed hose from the faucet to the entrance to the front yard, which is perfect since we can attach our garden hose to irrigation tubing adapter and get started here. I have 6 raised beds out here, 3 per column, so 2 columns. So I'll use a T connector here so that water can go to both raised beds at the same time. Then I'll use 2 elbow connectors so that the irrigation tubing can run through the raised bed. In each raised bed, I'll attach the barbed tee to the 1/2 inch irrigation tubing. It's simple as cutting the tubing and then connecting the 2 ends of the tubing with the barbed tee and then securing the connection with the provided nuts. You'll see that I chose a barbed tee with 4 connectors since I want to divide this raised bed into 4 spring areas. So the next step is to connect the 1/4 inch irrigation tubing to the barbed tee and then tightening with the provided green nut. I'll connect the other end of the 1/4 inch irrigation tubing to these drip emitters, which will spray the water all around. You can adjust these drip emitters by twisting them so that you can spray as much as you like. Alright, so this is what the finished setup looks like. It's important to test it out so you know if you assembled everything properly, and more importantly, to determine how much water are actually coming out of your drip emitters. Sometimes you don't have enough. That means you gotta turn up your water pressure. But sometimes you might have too much. So you may consider either dialing down your water pressure or extending your drip irrigation to feed other areas of your yard. So what I'm gonna do now is manually water the front yard using the irrigation timer. I'll let you see what it looks like. As I've mentioned, I've set up the front yard as my 3rd zone. So all I have to do is manually water the 3rd zone for about 10 minutes. And you can see that there's no problem with water pressure, and the raised beds are being watered evenly. So that was our video on setting up automated drip watering system. I hope you found this to be really useful, because I think this could save people a lot of time and give you back a lot of time to do more things you want to do throughout the day. I'm going to link the parts that I used on Amazon down in the description below, and you can try it out. And if you have any issues, questions, or comments, just leave it down in the comments below. So thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next video one.